The night I caught my wife cheating on our anniversary, I thought the worst thing I would ever see was another man's hand resting on hers. I was wrong. The affair was only the first layer. Underneath it was a secret so carefully buried that, when I finally discovered the truth, I couldn't tell whether I wanted to scream at my wife, forgive her, or simply disappear. And the strangest part, the man I thought had stolen my wife from me wasn't even the person she had been hiding from me. His name was Daniel. My wife's name was Emily. My name is Ethan. And for 11 years, I believed I knew both of them. I was wrong about one of them. I had no idea just how wrong. The first sign that something was wrong came 3 weeks before our anniversary. It was a Tuesday night. Emily was sitting at the kitchen table, staring at her phone. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't crying. She was simply staring. I walked into the kitchen carrying 2 mugs of coffee. "Everything okay?" She immediately turned the phone face down. "Yeah." One word. Too fast. I placed her coffee in front of her. "You sure?" She looked up and smiled. The smile was beautiful. It was also fake. "I'm just tired." I sat across from her. For 11 years, I had learned the difference between Emily's real smile and the one she used when she didn't want me asking questions. That was the first moment I realized she was hiding something. But I didn't accuse her. I didn't check her phone. I didn't demand an explanation. Because marriage had taught me something. Trust wasn't about never having doubts. Trust was about deciding what to do with those doubts. And I chose to trust her. That decision would haunt me. Emily and I had met at a small coffee shop in Chicago. I was 29. She was 27. I had just started working for an architectural firm, and she was finishing graduate school. She spilled coffee on my blue shirt. I told her she owed me a new shirt. She laughed and said, "You were probably overdue for a better one anyway." I fell in love with her 3 weeks later. She took longer, almost 6 months. But when she finally said, "I love you," she was standing barefoot in my apartment kitchen, holding a burnt grilled cheese sandwich. That night she told me something I'll never forget. "I don't need a perfect life, Ethan. I just want a real one." I believed her. We married 2 years later. Our wedding wasn't extravagant. There were 83 guests. Her father walked her down the aisle. My mother cried through the entire ceremony. We danced in a rented hall beneath cheap golden lights. When the DJ played our song, Emily put her head against my chest. "I'll love you until we're old," she whispered. I kissed her forehead. "I'll still annoy you when we're old," she laughed. "You already do." We bought a small house. We adopted a golden retriever named Cooper. We had a daughter, Lily, 4 years into our marriage. Life wasn't perfect, but it was ours. At least I thought it was. 3 weeks before our anniversary, Emily began coming home late. At first it was once, then twice, then almost every other night. "Work?" "Yeah." "What kind of project?" "Something complicated." She stopped talking about her day. She started taking her phone into the bathroom. She changed her password. She began sleeping with the phone beneath her pillow. And whenever I asked if something was wrong, she gave me the same answer. "I'm fine." I knew she wasn't, but I didn't know why. Then one Friday night, I saw her crying in the garage. She was sitting in her car. The engine was off. Her hands were gripping the steering wheel. I opened the garage door. She quickly wiped her face. "Emily?" She looked at me. For 1 second, her expression wasn't fear. It was guilt. Then she smiled. "Sorry, rough day." I walked toward her. "What happened?" "Nothing." "You're crying." I said, "I'm fine." Her voice cracked. I stopped. I wanted to hug her. Instead, I stood there. "Okay." She stepped out of the car and walked past me. That night, she didn't come to bed until almost 2 in the morning. I pretended to be asleep. She sat on the edge of the mattress. I felt her hand touch my shoulder. She whispered something. I couldn't hear it. Then she kissed my cheek. And she started crying. I wanted to turn around. I wanted to ask her what was happening. But something inside me said, "Wait." So I waited. Our anniversary was October 14th, 11 years. I had planned everything. I booked the same restaurant where we'd celebrated our first anniversary. I ordered flowers. I bought her a necklace. Not because she needed jewelry, because the pendant contained a tiny photograph of Lily from when she was 3 years old. On the back, I had engraved, "You gave me the family I always dreamed of." I thought she'd love it. I was wrong about that, too. On October 14th, Emily woke up unusually quiet. "Happy anniversary," I whispered. She smiled. "Happy anniversary." I kissed her. She hugged me, but the hug felt different, like she was saying goodbye. I pulled back. "What's wrong?" "Nothing. You keep saying that." She looked at me. "Ethan, please." "Please what?" "Can we just have one good day?" The words confused me. "Of course." She nodded. "Thank you." I didn't understand, but I didn't push. That afternoon, I left work early. I picked up the flowers. I collected the necklace. I drove home. The house was empty. Emily had texted me. "Running late. Don't wait for me." I smiled at the message. I texted back. "Wouldn't dream of it. Tonight is ours." She didn't respond. At 6:30, I changed clothes. At 7, I checked my phone. Nothing. At 7:15, I called. Straight to voicemail. At 7:30, I called again. Nothing. At 8, I started worrying. At 8:30, I got angry. At 9, I stopped believing she was coming home. I sat at the kitchen table. The flowers were beside me. The necklace was still in my pocket. I stared at the clock. 9:17, 9:24, 9:31. Then my phone buzzed. A message from Emily. But it wasn't from her number. It was from a number I didn't recognize. The message contained only an address and 3 words. "Come alone, Ethan." I stared at it. Then another message arrived. "If you want the truth about your wife, come now." My hands went cold. I called the number. No answer. I called again. Nothing. I didn't know who had sent it. I didn't know why. But somehow, I already knew this wasn't about work. It was about Emily. I grabbed my keys. The address was 20 minutes away. An old hotel near the river. I parked across the street. For several minutes, I sat in the car. I almost drove home. Then I saw Emily. She stepped out of a black SUV. She was wearing the blue dress I had bought her 2 years earlier. A man followed her. Tall, dark hair, gray coat. He placed his hand on her lower back. Emily didn't move away. My heart stopped. The man leaned down. He kissed her. I watched my wife kiss another man on our anniversary. I didn't scream. I didn't run across the street. I didn't punch him. I simply sat there, frozen, because sometimes your mind refuses to accept what your eyes are showing you. Emily pulled away. The man said something. She nodded. Then they walked inside the hotel. I got out of my car. My legs felt numb. I crossed the street. I walked into the lobby. The receptionist looked up. "Can I help you?" "I'm looking for someone." "Who?" I hesitated. "My wife." The woman looked uncomfortable. "What's her name?" "Emily Carter." She typed something, then looked at me. "She's in room 407. I stared at her. "With a man?" The receptionist didn't answer. She didn't need to. I walked toward the elevator. Every step felt like walking toward the end of my life. When I reached room 407, I heard voices. Emily's voice. Then the man's. I knocked. Silence. I knocked again. "Emily." No answer. "Emily, open the door." I heard movement. Then the lock clicked. The door opened. Emily stood there. Her face went completely white. "Ethan?" I looked past her. The man stood near the window. He looked at me. He didn't look guilty. He looked terrified. I turned back to Emily. "Who is he?" She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. "Who is he, Emily?" The man answered. "I'm Daniel." I looked at him. "Daniel what?" He swallowed. "Daniel Brooks." I looked at Emily. "How long?" She started crying. "Ethan." "How long?" 3 months. The words hit me harder than I expected. 3 months. 90 days. Hundreds of lies. Hundreds of mornings where she kissed me before leaving for work. Hundreds of nights when she came home and pretended everything was normal. I laughed. Not because anything was funny, because sometimes pain comes out as laughter. 3 months. Ethan, please. You cheated on me for 3 months? She covered her mouth. I'm sorry. I pointed at Daniel. Was he the reason? Emily shook her head. What does that mean? She couldn't answer. I stepped closer. Was he the reason you stopped loving me? No. Then why? She cried harder. I can't tell you. I stared at her. You can't? I don't know how. I looked at Daniel. Did you sleep with my wife? Daniel lowered his eyes. Yes. I nodded slowly. Thank you. Emily looked shocked. What? At least one person in this room is willing to tell me the truth. Daniel looked at me. Ethan, you don't understand. I laughed again. No, I don't. I turned toward the door. Emily grabbed my arm. Please don't leave. I pulled away. You should have thought about that before you brought him into our marriage. She cried. I didn't do this because I stopped loving you. I turned around. Then why did you do it? She stared at me. Her lips trembled. And then she said the sentence that changed everything. Because I was trying to save you. I froze. What? Daniel closed his eyes. Emily whispered, I was trying to save your life. I didn't understand. I thought she was lying. I thought it was another excuse. Some twisted attempt to make betrayal sound noble. Don't. Ethan, don't tell me you cheated on me to save me. I didn't want you to find out this way. Find out what? She looked at Daniel. He nodded. Then Emily walked toward the desk. She picked up a folder. Her hands were shaking. She gave it to me. I opened it. Inside were medical records, hospital documents, blood test results, and one name, mine. I stared at the first page, then the second, then the third. My stomach dropped. What is this? Emily couldn't speak. Daniel answered. It's your blood work. I looked at him. What does it say? He took a breath. Your leukemia screening came back positive. The room became silent. I looked at Emily. She nodded through tears. No. Yes. No. Ethan. I dropped the papers. No. My voice became louder. No, that's impossible. Emily came toward me. You had blood tests 6 weeks ago. I had a routine physical. I know. My doctor said everything looked normal. He called me. I stared at her. Why would he call you? She closed her eyes. Because you listed me as your emergency contact. I looked down. There was a document on the floor. A specialist's name. A hospital. A date. My hands started shaking. Why didn't you tell me? She whispered, because the diagnosis wasn't complete. What does that mean? They found abnormal cells. Leukemia? They weren't certain. I stared at her. Then why did you say I have it? I said the screening was positive. She took a breath. They needed more tests. And you knew? Yes. For how long? 6 weeks. 6 weeks? She had known for 6 weeks. And during those 6 weeks, she'd been cheating on me. I looked at Daniel. What does he have to do with this? Emily started crying again. Everything. Daniel walked toward me. I'm an oncology nurse. I stared at him. What? I'm not her lover. I laughed bitterly. I watched you kiss my wife. That was part of the cover. What cover? Daniel looked at Emily. She nodded. He continued. Emily found me through the hospital. I didn't understand. Why? Because your doctor referred your case to our oncology department. My knees weakened. I sat down. Daniel continued. The first blood test showed something suspicious. Your doctor wanted further testing. Emily was terrified. Why didn't she tell me? Because you had just started a major project at work. You were under pressure. You weren't sleeping. You were having headaches. I remembered. For weeks, I had been getting headaches. I had blamed stress. Emily had begged me to see a doctor. I had refused. Daniel sat across from me. Your wife came to the hospital asking questions. I looked at Emily. She wasn't allowed access to your medical records without authorization. Then how did she know? She was your emergency contact. He paused. She was desperate. I looked at the folder. And the affair? Emily covered her face. Daniel answered. She wanted you to think she was leaving you. My heart stopped. Why? Because if the diagnosis was positive, she believed you would sacrifice everything for her. She thought you'd stop treatment, stop working, stop taking care of yourself, and spend whatever time you had left trying to make her happy. I stared at Emily. That's insane. I know, she whispered. You thought I'd give up? I thought you would put everyone else first. You cheated on me to make me angry? She nodded. I wanted you to hate me. I couldn't breathe. You wanted me to hate you? Yes. So I'd move on? Yes. So you'd leave me? Yes. I stood. That makes no sense. Emily started crying. It made sense when I was scared. I left the hotel without another word. Emily followed me to the parking lot. Ethan, please. I turned around. Did you sleep with him? She froze. Yes. The answer hurt. Even knowing everything else. Even knowing the truth. That word still cut through me. How many times? She lowered her head. Twice. I closed my eyes. I wanted to hate her. I wanted to tell myself she was a monster. But the problem was that I knew her. I knew how she cried during sad movies. I knew she hated thunderstorms. I knew she couldn't sleep if the bedroom door was open. I knew she still had the first birthday card I'd ever given her. I knew she loved Lily more than anything. And now I knew she had been carrying a secret alone, because she thought she was protecting me. That didn't make the betrayal disappear. It just made it harder to understand. I need you to stay away from me. Ethan, please. She nodded. I got into my car. Before I drove away, she said, I never stopped loving you. I looked at her through the windshield. That's what makes this hurt so much. Then I drove away. The next morning, I went to the hospital. I sat in the waiting room for 40 minutes. A doctor finally called my name. Dr. Marcus Reed. He was the same physician who had performed my physical. He sat across from me. Ethan, I owe you an explanation. You called my wife because she was listed as your emergency contact. You told her I might have leukemia. I told her your blood work required urgent follow-up. Did you tell her I was dying? No. Did you tell her I had cancer? No. Then why did she think I did? Dr. Reed sighed. Because the screening test was abnormal. What are the chances? We need additional testing. That's not an answer. I know. He looked at me. Your follow-up tests will tell us more. What if it's positive? We treat it. What if it isn't? Then we move forward. I sat silently. Then I asked, why didn't you call me? We tried. I looked up. What? We called twice. You didn't answer? I remembered. Unknown numbers. I never answered unknown numbers. Dr. Reed sighed. Emily contacted us after that. I stared at him. She asked whether she could arrange the tests. She did? Yes. I felt a strange combination of anger and sadness. She had been fighting for me, just not in the way I wanted. The tests took several days. Those days were the longest of my life. Emily stayed with her sister. Lily stayed with me. I didn't tell her everything. I told her Mom and Dad were having a serious problem. She looked at me. Are you getting divorced? The question broke my heart. I don't know. She nodded, then asked, does Mom still love you? I couldn't answer. Instead, I said, your mom loves you. She hugged me. That night, after Lily went to sleep, I sat alone in the living room. I looked at the wedding photograph. Emily was laughing. I was smiling. We looked young, untouchable. I wondered when that version of us had disappeared. Then I found an envelope under the photograph. My name was written on it. Emily's handwriting. I opened it. Inside was a letter. Ethan, if you're reading this, then I probably failed. I wanted you to hate me. I thought if you hated me enough, you'd stop putting everyone else first. You have spent 11 years making sure everyone around you is okay. You work too much. You worry too much. You forgive too easily. When the doctor called me, I was terrified. Not because I was afraid of losing my marriage. I was afraid of losing you. I imagined you sitting in a hospital bed telling me you were sorry for leaving us with medical bills. I imagined you worrying about Lily instead of yourself. I knew if I told you I was scared, you'd spend every dollar we had trying to save me from being afraid. So I made myself the villain. I thought you would leave me. I thought you would rebuild your life. I thought that if the worst happened, at least you would have something left. I know what I did was unforgivable. Maybe I deserve your hatred, but please don't let my mistake become your excuse to give up. Please get tested. Please fight. Please live, even if you never speak to me again. I love you. Emily. I read it twice, then a third time. Then I cried. Not because she had cheated. Not because I was afraid of cancer. I cried because I finally understood how terrified she must have been. And because love sometimes doesn't make people behave rationally. Sometimes it makes them do the most destructive things imaginable. 3 days later, Dr. Reed called. Your results are back. I held my breath. The initial screening was a false positive. I couldn't speak. What? You don't have leukemia. I closed my eyes. Are you sure? Yes. I started laughing, then crying, then laughing again. I leaned against the kitchen counter. Thank God. Dr. Reed continued. You should still follow up annually, but there is no evidence of cancer. I thanked him. Then I sat on the floor. I stayed there for several minutes. I was alive, healthy. The thing that had nearly destroyed my life wasn't cancer. It was fear. And the woman I loved had nearly destroyed our marriage because she was afraid of losing me. I didn't call Emily immediately. I needed time. 2 days passed. Then 3. On the 4th day, I drove to her sister's house. Emily opened the door. She looked exhausted. Her eyes were red. Ethan? I held up the hospital report. She stared at it. You're okay? Yes. She began crying. I stepped inside. She hugged me. I stood there for several seconds before gently pulling away. I need you to understand something. She nodded. You didn't save me. I know. You nearly destroyed us. I know. You had another man kiss you. I know. You lied to me for 3 months. I know. You made decisions about my life without telling me. I know. She wiped her eyes. I am so sorry. I looked at her. Do you love me? Yes. Then why didn't you trust me enough to tell me the truth? She looked down. Because I was scared. That's not an answer. She swallowed. I didn't trust myself to watch you suffer. I sat down. She sat across from me. I thought if you knew, you'd become a different person. What person? The kind who gives everything away. I almost smiled. You mean me? Yes. You know me. That's why I was scared. She looked at me. I knew you would sell the house. You'd cancel Lily's college fund. You'd stop thinking about retirement. You'd work until you collapsed. You'd tell everyone you were fine. She paused. And I couldn't bear the thought of being the reason. I looked at her. So you became the reason. She cried. Yes. That was the truth. No excuse. No defense. Just truth. I asked about Daniel. Emily explained everything. Daniel worked at the hospital. He had become involved when she needed someone to help her understand the medical terminology. At some point, she realized I might see them together. She asked Daniel to help her create the appearance of an affair. The first time they kissed, she cried afterward. The second time, she couldn't stop shaking. Daniel eventually told her it was going too far. But Emily was convinced she needed to make me believe she was leaving. The hotel was supposed to be the final act. She had planned to tell me she wanted a divorce. Then she planned to leave the country for several months with her sister. She thought distance would make it easier for me to move on. I stared at her. You were going to disappear? She nodded. I had a plan. Where? Colorado. I laughed softly. Of course. What? You always wanted to live in Colorado. She smiled through tears. Remember that? I remember everything. That sentence made her cry again. We didn't reconcile that day. Love wasn't enough. Forgiveness wasn't automatic. There were consequences. I moved into the guest room. Emily moved back home 2 weeks later. We started marriage counseling. The first session was brutal. The counselor asked me, Do you still love her? Yes. Do you trust her? No. Then she asked Emily, Do you still love him? More than anything. Do you trust him? Emily looked confused. Of course. The counselor nodded. Then you both understand the problem. I looked at Emily. She looked at me. We have love, the counselor said. But we don't have safety. That became our work. Not romance, not intimacy, not pretending. Safety, truth, communication, trust. We started with small things. Emily stopped hiding her phone. I stopped checking it. She told me where she was going. I stopped assuming the worst. She learned to say, I'm scared. I learned to say, tell me. We had arguments. A lot of them. Some nights I couldn't look at her. Some mornings she couldn't forgive herself. There were days when I thought divorce would be easier. But every time I considered leaving, I remembered something. We had spent 11 years building a life. We weren't going to erase 11 years because of one terrible season. But we also weren't going to pretend that season hadn't happened. 6 months later, we renewed our vows. Not in a church, not in a hotel, not in front of a crowd. We went to the small park where we had our first date. Lily stood between us. Cooper sat beside her. Emily held my hands. I used to think loving someone meant protecting them from pain. She looked at me. I was wrong. I listened. Loving someone means trusting them enough to face the pain with you. I squeezed her hands. She continued. I can't promise I'll never be afraid again. Neither can I. But I promise I won't lie to protect you from the truth. I nodded. And I promise, I said, that I won't make you carry my fear alone. Lily looked between us. So are you married again? We both laughed. Emily looked at me. I think so. I smiled. Yeah. Lily hugged us both. And for the first time in months, it felt like we were a family again. Not the family we had been. A different one. A more honest one. 1 year after the hotel incident, Emily and I returned to the same restaurant where we had planned to celebrate our 11th anniversary. This time there was no secret. No hidden phone. No mysterious message. No fear. Just dinner. Emily reached across the table. I'm nervous. Why? Because last year was the worst night of our lives. I looked at her. And this year? She smiled. Maybe it can be the beginning of the rest of our lives. The waiter brought our food. We talked about Lily. We talked about work. We talked about the house. We talked about Colorado. We laughed. Then Emily reached into her purse. She pulled out a small box. I stared at it. What is that? Your anniversary gift. I opened it. Inside was a simple silver key. I looked confused. It's for what? Our future. I laughed. That's dramatic. I know. She smiled. Then she turned the box over. There was an inscription inside. No more secrets? I looked at her. She reached across the table. I mean it. I held her hand. I know. Years later, people sometimes asked me whether I regretted staying. The answer was complicated. I regretted what happened. I regretted the lies. I regretted the affair. I regretted every moment when trust disappeared. But I didn't regret choosing to understand before choosing to destroy. Because here's what I learned. Betrayal isn't always born from a lack of love. Sometimes it's born from fear. That doesn't make betrayal acceptable. It doesn't excuse it. But understanding why someone hurt you can sometimes be the first step toward deciding whether the relationship can survive. Emily and I didn't save our marriage because we forgot what happened. We saved it because we refused to pretend it hadn't happened. She learned that protecting someone doesn't mean hiding the truth. I learned that loving someone doesn't mean expecting them to read your mind. And both of us learned that marriage isn't about promising that nothing will ever go wrong. It's about deciding what you'll do when everything does. 2 years after the night at the hotel, I woke up one morning to find Emily standing beside the bed. You're going to be late. I opened one eye. 5 more minutes. She smiled. You said that yesterday. I'm consistent. She rolled her eyes. Then she leaned down and kissed me. Breakfast is ready. I grabbed her hand before she walked away. Emily? She looked back. Yeah? I love you. She smiled. I love you too. Then she walked downstairs. I stayed in bed for another minute. I thought about the man I had been 2 years earlier. A man who believed trust meant never questioning the person he loved. A man who believed strength meant protecting everyone around him. A man who thought his marriage was safe because he and his wife loved each other. I understood now. Love is not protection from betrayal. Love is not protection from fear. Love is not protection from pain. Love is the decision to tell the truth, even when the truth is terrifying. And sometimes the person who hurts you most is also the person who is most afraid of losing you. That doesn't erase the wound, but it can explain why the wound happened. I still have the necklace I bought Emily that anniversary. The one with Lily's picture inside. For months I couldn't bring myself to give it to her. Eventually I did. Not because the past had disappeared, because it hadn't. I gave it to her on the anniversary of the night we almost lost everything. She opened it. She cried. Then she turned the pendant over. The engraving still read, "You gave me the family I always dreamed of." She looked at me. "Do you still mean it?" I looked at Lily, who was laughing in the backyard. Then at Emily. "Yes." She started crying. But this time I said, "I want one more line." She smiled. "What?" I took the necklace. And underneath the old engraving I added, "And you taught me that family means facing the truth together." Emily hugged me. We stood there for a long time. No lies, no secrets, no pretending. Just two imperfect people who had nearly lost everything and decided, somehow, to try again. And that's the part of the story I never expected. I thought catching my wife cheating would be the moment my marriage died. Instead, it became the moment I finally understood what our marriage needed. Not perfection, not promises, not blind trust. Truth, even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. Because sometimes the secret you're terrified will destroy your life is the same. Secret that forces you to finally rebuild it honestly. And sometimes, the worst night of your life isn't the end. Sometimes it's the night you finally stop lying to each other and start living again.